So last time we talked about sharpening and what sharpening is, how to create a burr, how to remove the burr, refining edge, and just the overall general concept. This time I'm going to go into a little bit more detail to make sure that the sharpening is actually easier and you kind of have a better idea of how to do it. There's a lot that can get pretty confusing and really difficult at times. So these are a few tips that will help you kind of diagnose or troubleshoot if you're having issues sharpening your knives. The first thing to look for, the first thing to do is actually look at your knife. This seems like really stupid and really basic, but like let's say you're sharpening a knife. This is Sam's knife that I asked for to borrow. You want to make sure that there's no like warps, there's no overgrinds in the edge, there's no twisting or anything like that. If you just go to sharpen a knife and you're going through your motions, it might be flat and it might be straight, which would be good. But if it's not, and you're doing those motions, you're gonna find something wrong. It might not hit certain areas, or it's gonna hit certain areas too much. And in some cases, it's gonna be bad enough where it might not actually get sharp. Sometimes it's just not worth the effort to try to fix it on, a specific knife. Another thing to look for is like, this knife is a Western style knife with a full bolster that goes all the way down to the heel. These are pretty common in a lot of households. And I actually have no idea what these are here for. They were just made like this for like 100 years. They're still being made like this. It's for like safety or weight balance or something. It's bullshit. Every single knife that I've sharpened with one of these bolsters that go all the way down, you have this overgrind at the heel, because when you put this on the stone, like you can see, it runs into that bolster. So you can't actually start the sharpening all the way back. You have to start it right here. And what happens is when you start your sharpening forward of the heel every single time, you're just gonna grind this basically like this hole in the edge. If you have one of these knives and you're trying to sharpen that, you effectively can't sharpen up in this area. And every time you try to cut on a board, you have this gap. So actually, let's get that cutting board. I'll be right back.
Notice mine is fine.
Yeah, this is actually good. A lot of these knives with the bolster, if you put it down on a board, you're gonna see this huge gap like right here. And so what's happening is you can't sharpen that area very well. Only the front area is gonna be sharpened. And this isn't even cutting to the board. So if you're trying to cut something, you have to like do a sawing motion every single time you cut. And that's horse shit. That is just dumb. What was I saying? Oh, sharpening the heel. Sometimes it might not even be worth it to sharpen something like that. Like if it's so far gone and it's not like something that was passed down from your grandfather or, wherever, might be time to buy a new knife. It depends how bad it is, how much you care about your knife, and how much you're willing to put into it. So yeah, a few ways that I look at knives when I pick them up is I'm gonna look at the knife this way. So I'm looking if the edge is straight, if there's any overgrinds in it. I'm gonna look at it this way to see if there's any warps or any twists. And I just kind of like check back and forth each orientation, see what's going on. The next thing to keep in mind is your stone has to be flat. This seems obvious again because you have to have a flat surface so that when you're doing your sharpening motions, it's consistent across, going forward or going back. So if you're doing your motions like this, you're going back and forth, it's hard enough learning to keep that angle steady. Now, if you don't take care of your stone and it's got this huge dish, which will happen if you don't take care of your stones, then even if your motion is perfect and you hold that angle all the way down consistently, effectively the angle relative to the edge is changing because your stone angle is changing, and you don't want that. You want to make sure your stone's flat. And the way you can flatten your stone, a few different ways. You can get a diamond plate, you can get a stone flattener, you can, if you're desperate, put sandpaper on your granite countertop or something like that. I've done that before. But just mark your stone a few times with a pencil or something. Doesn't have to be pretty. And then you just take flattener. This one's kind of worn out, so it won't do that good of a job, but I kind of maintain these on a regular basis, so I don't need to take off that much. And I just I'm just gonna go, and the low spots will have pencil marks on them. So you wanna go until all those pencil marks are gone. So all the pencil marks are gone. And then I'll chamfer the edges a bit so that there's no like harsh step or anything like that. And that's it. That's a very important step to making sure that your sharpening motions are as consistent as possible and that there's just one less variable to think about. The whole goal is to minimize variables that can go wrong. So that's an easy one. The next tip I have is going to help with figuring out what angle you're actually holding it and which part of the knife you're removing steel from. So the last video I talked about just picking an angle like 90, 45, 22 and a half. When you get better and more fluent with sharpening, you don't just want to hold an angle and do that for every single knife. Sometimes when you're sharpening, you want to be able to, hit the edge a little bit more, or maybe thin it a little bit behind the edge. Or maybe like in certain circumstances, you're sharpening for a long time and you're just like, I'm not hitting a burr, like what the heck? Well, you can take a look and you might be able to see where you're hitting, like if you're hitting the actual edge or if you're hitting the shoulder above the edge. That can be really hard to figure out like how to see that because sometimes the edge is so thin that you can't see anything. So this tip I've learned from John at Japanese Knife Imports. You just take a Sharpie and you mark along the whole edge. And that's it. Now when you've sharpied the edge, when you do your passes, like this, let's say I'm gonna hold the angle too low so that I'm not actually hitting the edge. When I do my passes, so you can just see, I just did passes where the angle was too low. And so I was hitting this area above the edge and I'm not actually hitting the edge itself. You can see there's Sharpie still at the very edge itself, the cutting edge. So that's a good test to see, if you're holding it too low or too high. This will help you learn where to look when you're doing your passes. So if you do the Sharpie test and you do the opposite thing where you hold it too high, you're gonna see there's gonna be a lot of Sharpie above the cutting edge on the shoulder, and there's only gonna be the small little sliver of the edge being sharpened. That's one thing you can do to kind of see where you're hitting along the edge. The last tip I have is for sharpening the tip itself. This is one of the most difficult parts of sharpening a knife, in my opinion, because this is just pure muscle memory. Most knives will have a flat section or flat-ish section unless you have one of those really big belly knives. But at the tip, you've got more belly going up along the profile of the edge itself. And so this is easy to hold your angle and to figure it out. Once you get to the tip, there's like no footprint to be able to hold on to. So you're just like, well, this is the angle, but like where in the world there's too many degrees of freedom. One way that I figured out to help you hold the knife and to apply pressure right at the tip is take your two fingers, like what I talked about, you apply pressure directly where you're removing metal, apply it right at the tip. So like I can hold it flat in the stone right at the tip. Now I take my two fingers back here and I just lift up right there. That is the angle right there that you need to hold it at. So you're lifting up the butt. And what I'm doing by applying a lot of pressure at the tip right now, this is just to train myself to know where to hold it and to be able to practice the motions to build that muscle memory up. Because if you're just holding it like this and you try to lift up the butt, like you can do that, you can do your passes, you can do the Sharpie test and see, but it's a lot of back and forth and back and forth. And sometimes you just need some physical cue to teach you how far do you need to push it up. So two fingers, right at the very tip, lift up the butt, and do your best to keep that angle the same as what you've held it before. But this will definitely help you to nail down pressure at the tip. The motion itself for the sharpening at the tip and the belly right here is it's gonna be a slight sweeping motion. So I'm gonna exaggerate. It's flat here, sweep up. So it's gonna be the slight sweeping motion as I'm going. I'm lifting up the butt as I get to the tip, and then I go back flat when I get to the rest of the blade. And that's just simply practice. doing that test right there to feel for the angle and just building the muscle memory. Like when I'm sharpening the tip right here, I'll do the passes right there, flat. Next section, 2 fingers right there. Do my passes, and then next section, 2 fingers. I'm just trying to feel for the angle, and I'm lifting the butt a little bit and applying pressure right there. Hopefully that helps. That's all the advice I have right now. It's just practice. I think that's it for sharpening tips. It's literally just practice and then figuring that shit out for yourself. Everyone learns a different way. Everyone has their own preferences. This is the way I do it. And I'm sure a lot of people are gonna tell me I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
Thanks, Sam.